organization, what our journey has been over the last few years, and where I see our journey to be in the next few years, and some of the key elements within that journey. So, about ourselves, we are a social landlord. Normally, you would know them as housing associations. We build, manage, and home or manage residents within those homes. So our main mission really is to house low-income families, but we don't get a lot of funding from the government as we did a long time ago. We generate our own revenue by building our own buildings. We sell them commercially, and the revenue that we raise from there then goes towards our social purpose. So in terms of our value of homes that we own, it's about 21 billion. We make a surplus, in other words, it's profit that we then reinvest back into the business. We've got about 170,000 customers. So in terms of our journey, we came from a really low base. We tried digital technology many times. There were false starts. And like some of the speakers that have said before, the real change came from getting an exec sponsor who is our chief operating officer, step away from his role and take on digital change seriously. And that's when I came in 2017. So just to give you some context, when I came in, we had very basic capacity. We were just doing support. And all of the services, all of the technology came from someone else. And there was not much we could do. The team was not very motivated because there was not much they could do. So from that low base, we thought we're going to really invest in this and not just invest straight into technology. We're going to look at what we do. And we did a lot of legwork before that to see what does our organization do all of the time. And we found that there are about 8 processes that most of us do most of the time. And they were quite obvious when we thought about it. And then we looked at our landscape. Our landscape had 140 different software applications, right? And what happened was that most of our staff went out onto the field, did a bunch of stuff. They had the new Microsoft Nokia phones. Actually, you couldn't do much with it. They had to come back, had to read manuals, understand many different systems, and it was really tedious. And this is the time when they were going out on Amazon or eBay and having a great experience. So we thought, how can we change this without creating a monolithic system that would take a long time, many years to build, and we wouldn't even know whether it would be successful by that time it's finished. And we have seen this many times. So what we thought is we'll keep the systems that we have. We will build an amazing digital experience on the top of that. And that would be the same for both our customers and our colleagues, our employees. They will all use one system. They would not have to understand and learn different systems. That system will aggregate information from many systems that we own, but also our partners own, like our suppliers, our maintenance companies, and so on. So they don't have to worry about any of these things. They can go and do the jobs that they came in to do in the first place. So we put in a great experience called WorkWise. And this is a singular platform that will work on your mobile or desktop or tablet. So you can do all these things on the move. Anything that can be automated is automated. And this was a real game changer. So if I go back to the timeline, we kind of rolled this out around 2017, 2018. Just to top this off, we had a merger in between that. So I doubled my technology estate at the same time. But actually, the rollout helped in the merger itself because everybody had that singular experience. So at that time, the view was that technology is a cost center. It's much like electricity or gas, which is pretty much the same. You just go for the cheapest vendor, the cheapest provider that can provide you that technology. The rollout of this seamless experience, that completely changed the mindset of the colleagues that work for us, but also the executive. The confidence they had in our technology and in our capabilities were much better. And that continued. And after the rollout, the next thing was, how can we increase that capability? So we had initially brought in external companies, some of them that built ASOS and so on, to come in and kickstart this whole digital transformation project. We then took this on ourselves. We started from zero, no employees. We created a startup within our organization. We built that team from the ground up. And as you can imagine, in London it's really hard to get this kind of expertise. So I expanded out to India and to Eastern Europe, get those expertise and create this team, these Scrum teams that work together as one team to deliver features every 2 weeks. And that was a big success, and then COVID struck. And it was an opportunity, actually. That's when, really, if there was anyone that was in doubt, completely understood why this was an advantage. We already had laptops because of this rollout, and in overnight, everyone could work from home. They could go out for emergency repairs and so on with their tablets. It was fine. So we didn't feel a lot of pain, and that was a game changer. But at the same time, we could try out new things. Some of the back-end processes were still not automated, and that was the opportunity to show those services like finance and HR and so on, what could be done. And I introduced low code at that point. So we took this new technology that we had tried out but was not quite there, and took a little bit of a risk and put out some pilots to see how it'll go. It was amazing. I personally built a COVID tracking app for our employees. I thought it'd last a few months. It's still running. It took about half a day for me to build. It was amazing. It was a transformation in thinking. And then this year, we did another pilot with Microsoft around IoT. So we took 2 buildings and we put sensors in those buildings, used all of the new technology around data lakes and so on, and then streamed this information in. Another big success that now others in the sector are partnering with us to kind of see how that could evolve and where that could take us. So I told you that at the start, the low confidence in technology and sticking with what we have, that completely changed over this course of time. And for the first time in our business strategy, technology is a pillar for success. In fact, in the second paragraph, the CEO mentions technology as an enabler. Because once we rolled out this technology, the whole business operating model changed. It was technology first. So we are actually interacting through technologies. We've had half our customers logged on or signed into this new technology. So it completely changed the model of the business. So in terms of even explaining these things, when I first started, there was a book around this is the strategy, and it was not very consumable for most people. So I kind of changed that around. I created a poster, basically, as the strategy, something that everybody could understand. It started with why we are doing things, and that's from the business strategy. This is why we're doing it, and what we're doing, what is the target, where we're driving towards, in a way that business can understand. Because this is not for technicians, this is for the businesses. And I use the same poster to talk to my guys, to talk to the board, to talk to EB. And I think it takes some work, but they understand it, they get it. And it's very clear in terms of where we need to get to. And then on the side, how are we going to do it? What are the technologies that will help us get to the what and the why? So I speak with the CEO, understand what it is that they're driving to, what are the real problems in the business. So the engagement is really important. Like the speakers in the other room said, the EB needs to understand what is that we're doing and how it's going to help them. So if you look at it closely, I've got their faces pasted on there. It'll get their attention, They know exactly what and if I'm wrong, they'll tell me that I'm wrong, and I can correct it. So some of the things that I think going forward, what we're going to do is around the multi-channel user experience. So currently, most of this is going through a browser. But we are now looking at and have had pilots around that view layer changing or adding to that view layer. I'm looking at Alexa, Google, and so on. So our residents can just naturally talk and interact with this technology. It'll all be hooked on to the same singular business layer. But the way you get there is different. So it could be that, it could be chat. So even chat is evolving. So they're called agents now. It can do more than just have conversations. It can change things. To give you an example, some of our contractors will go out to do a job. They might get stuck in traffic. They might fall ill. They can just go onto a chat and say, this is what happened to me. It will hook on back to the main system, and then there's a process behind it. It'll inform the resident that they can't make it. There'll be a new appointment that we scheduled for them. It's instantaneous. And if you look at how it was done before, it'll take days before the rest. So the resident is sitting there waiting for someone to come, but that person, because it's a third party, it is very slow. There's a lot of latency. So that multi-channel experience is a massive thing that's coming for us. And we are currently doing a lot of work around data. We're creating this whole cloud data infrastructure with Synapse and data lakes and so on. But beyond that, so you can look at data, that's great, that's the first step, and it makes a massive difference. But beyond that, it can trigger events, it can do things. If a lift fails, it will trigger an event, and because we are deep linked onto our supplier systems, they will send out a contractor without anyone touching it. Nobody needs to approve it. We can set down rules, and it will just automatically work. And it's a great experience for our customers. It's value for money for us. We save a lot of money. It's better PR for us. So that's beyond data. And the next step beyond that is AI and machine learning. Once we have enough data in that pool, we can then make sense of the data. We can see patterns, and that can be used for better investments. Currently, it's all scheduled. We go and visit places every 2 years because that's what we do. But we can target places that need that visit and use our resources much more effectively, but also investments much more effectively. Hyper-automation, I already spoke about some of it. Digital twin also I've spoken about. But in terms of design and build, that is the bit that is changing. This is not something a housing association used to do before. But because this infrastructure is available, it is now possible, even for housing associations like us, to do this kind of build our own software effectively. And the other part of my strategy is to reduce technical debt. So if you write code after a few years, usually 3 years, we have to rewrite it. It's fine for a software house, but not for a housing association. So how can I reduce this technical debt? So the way that I can reduce it is by shifting that technical debt to someone else. One way is by using hyper-automation. So the whole process behind hyper-automation is owned and managed by Microsoft. The other way is to shift to SaaS, iPaaS, PaaS models. And just to elaborate on that, we are shutting down all our data centers in the next year, and we're going completely into the cloud. It's a bold move, but we're doing it because I don't want our guys to sit there and fix machines. What I want is our guys to build software that will help our businesses. Every pound that we spend needs to go to a business feature. That's what I want. So all of the servers, all of the kind of stuff, somebody else can do it, right? And even in terms of coding, we are using serverless technology. So functions and so on are all serverless. So if somebody changes a security protocol, I don't have to worry about it. Microsoft will worry about it, right? So this is how I'm moving out my technical debt, because I want the things that I built to run forever if I can. So it cannot be completely avoided, but it can be about 80%. We can move it out. So low code would be the way to do it. So I have told my team in 2 years' time, I want 60% of whatever you're writing now to be low code. I don't want it to code. And every time they think about a solution, what they're thinking about first is, how can I do this without coding? And it's hard for a developer to think about. because it's easy. I can write a few lines, and it's easy. But if you have to do low code, maybe it'll take slightly more time. But in terms of maintenance, in terms of documentation and understanding, it's far better to use low code. So those are some of the areas that I think will come in the next few years, or I'm planning to go and put money into in the next few years. That's pretty much it for my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
So we've got a few questions come in digitally, which were interesting. So we'll try and get through these if we've got time.
Sure.
So the first one is, you mentioned that it was quite important to you that you had an executive sponsor. What do you do if you're in an organization that isn't as forward-thinking? How do you get the executive team to buy into what is presumably a very expensive project?
So I had a conversation some time ago with my CEO, and she said, it's just boring. We come in every year, and this happens in pretty much all organizations. You have to make a plan for the next 5 years, and there's a technology piece in there, and the technologist goes in with stuff that they completely have no idea what you're talking about. So they say yes, and look to the IT director to also say yes. That's fine. You just carry on. But this is the excitement that we have to create.
Yeah.
And that's where I've put maybe 30% of my time into. I regularly meet all of EB. I get them excited. Another thing that I do as well, both for execs but also for my team, is to do pilots. And some of them I do it myself. And I show them this can be done. So to give an example of that, there is, because of Brentford and so on, there's new legislation coming through, which means that we have to put all our documents and data electronically in an auditable way. So I created a prototype myself, showed it to the exec for development, and he loved it. Because the response was, well, most of the time, Rajiv, you just talk about it, right? And nothing happens. It's all good, but I'm just fed up of not seeing anything, and you've shown me something, and that project, that's the way I engage execs. I do stuff, or I show things in a way that they can consume.
Okay, there are a few questions. Hopefully we'll try and get through them all. One from me though, that obviously you built something which was very helpful for the business, and the leadership of the business were thrilled with it, but you've got multiple sets of end users. So you've got the employees using it, you've obviously got your technical team, and it sounds as if you've got your tenants, your customers using it as well. That's a lot of people to try and bring on this journey with you. How did you encourage people to adopt it?
So it was hard to get everybody on board. There's no question about it. Change management is most of the work, to be honest. Technology, you can predict, you can do, there's nothing you can't solve. But to change people's mind is quite hard, including my own team, right? Can you do it? Am I capable of doing it? That is quite hard. But I guess to get people, at least those are somewhat within our remit. But for customers, we actually go and convince, we kind of actively promote. So for example, this afternoon, I'm actually going to a site. I'm meeting with the property managers to see how they're using it, what the problems are, and I'm also seeing residents. All of EB are doing the same thing today.
Right.
And pretty much anyone that is not on holiday, that is a director, is going and doing that. So we are very active in kind of doing it and showing them, not forcing them, but showing them how it will benefit them to use it.
That makes sense. A question that's come in, which I'm not sure if a platform would have existed already, but why did you choose to build something yourself rather than kind of pulling together a few different project management tools and running it that way?
So we did try, trust me, we did try to get out-of-the-box products. We even tried CRM systems, but the user experience was not quite there. And that was the killer for us. We did really try, because it's actually easier for us, less risky for us to do that. But it just wasn't there. Then the other part of that is that if we do this, we create that layer, nobody understands what's underneath it. Nobody relates, like that kind of change management piece. Nobody relates to a specific product, right? They relate to what we call workwise, which is what we have named this. We can then shift whatever is underneath. It's completely within it. So we have much more control over our suppliers as well.
Yeah.
And in terms of change management, if they don't see anything on the top, that's fine. For us to kind of change things underneath it, make them more efficient and more modernized. Let's say going to the cloud is a good example. You know, it would have been very hard if you didn't have this technology to go to the cloud.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Now, you've clearly riled a developer here. So someone's asked, if you, not phrased very well, if you're trying to go down a low-code or a no-code route, are you exposing yourself to your providers falling over or cancelling their product or shifting out the feature set that you're particularly using? So although it's easier in terms of technical debt to use their services, does it place you in danger going forward?
I mean, for companies like us, there's always danger. We have to pick a side, right? It could be AWS, it could be Google, it could be Microsoft. We have to pick a side.
Yeah.
We can't create all of these things from scratch. So we have to weigh the risk, and that question is very good because it is a risk. But it is a risk that is less risky than not doing it. So that's basically it. You know, so those risks exist regardless of which path you choose. Yeah. Those risks exist. So if you were to build this all completely without something like that kind of platform, then you're taking on even more risk, right? So there's no risk-free option really. So no, hopefully that kind of answers the question.
That makes perfect sense. Okay. Does anybody in the room have any questions before we move on? No, fantastic. Rajiv, that was fascinating. Thank you. I really enjoyed that. Who knew that building a system for a housing association could be so interesting?
It's exciting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.